go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this podcast, I sense, is going to go places.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like those conversations before, I was going places already.
Yeah. Yeah, great places,
Yeah.
wonderful, virtuous places.
Yes.
All right. So you talked about change and growth being something that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I always like to understand what a person actually does. And you told me, and I still don't get it. So
Yeah.
can you tell me again, please?
So I'm a change agent,
Yeah.
right?
Bro,
So
how
I
good
see
does that
myself-
sound? Just FYI. Yeah.
It is good, man. Like black suits, change agent, right? FBI agent.
Yeah, you need sunnies, bro. Well, I've seen it. You actually do have sunnies.
Yeah. So the whole thing is in that my whole being of who I am is rotating about one word, which is change.
Yeah.
I see change as a very important key part of everything we do. I believe there's two things we cannot avoid,
Mm.
as we talked about: time and change. We live in time, and we all experience change. Now, how we accept that change is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you may accept that differently. I may accept it differently, or experience it differently, or go through it differently. You can
Yeah.
either be positive or negative. But the word that like describes or differentiates them too, it's intentionality as well. If you're intentionally bringing positive change, then you've got a vision already that you're changing towards.
Okay. Side tangent.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with what you're talking about. I was just thinking. So I heard this story
Yeah, yeah,
about evolutionary psychology, and they found out with almost 100% certainty that our perceived reality is not what it is. It's our adaptation. So we don't see reality as it is. We see it as in a way that's most effective for us to survive.
well,
Thoughts on time not being real then?
well, it's time. Even like, who discovered time?
Yeah.
Big question, right? So the biggest thing about science, it's always based on theses. My background's biomed.
Thesis,
Yeah.
theory, bro. It sounded like you said feces.
No.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, but he's from PG 17. He's still,
So all of it. My background's biomed science, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
Damn.
evolution's part of it. We just
What's the power? What's the powerhouse of the cell?
the nucleus, right?
Oh, that's the brain.
That's the nucleus, the mitochondria.
Bomb. Now we're
That's
cooking.
where the food and everything gets
Yeah.
just right. So on that sense, what you said is everything perception and reality.
Mm.
We teach one of these things to salespeople.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Wow. Time's
Because-
not real. Sell the house.
That's because like the thing is, here's the perception, right? So
Yeah.
in that context, if you're a real estate agent, if you're listening,
Yeah. Hit
there's-
him up.
yeah, there's a vendor perception, there's a seller perception, and there's a buyer perception.
Yeah.
Right. So the vendor will like, oh, this is my house so big,
Mm.
and the seller will come in, it's okay, and the buyer will come in, it's too small. But what
There's a joke there somewhere.
there is, but but if I could put a picture on it, then you'll get the joke.
No, don't put a picture on that. Yeah.
So the thing about that is your perception becomes reality.
Yeah.
Right. And talking about that, so your reality of what it is at some point was a perception. So over time, that perception became true, as you talked about, in your belief system, and that became your reality.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a strong believer that people don't seek the truth; they try to reconfirm what they already know.
Yeah, familiarity. If you talk about all of these things, why do people stay in bad relationships all the time?
Yeah, tell me that.
Because they're familiar. They go out, but they don't like it. It's a change,
Yeah,
but they don't go out, but they're not familiar with the environment. So what they do is go back to what they're familiar with. Those bad relationships, those bad environments, the culture, everything.
yeah.
They go back to it because they're familiar with it.
Well, take it to another level.
Yeah.
They're dating their parents. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a messed up way to say it, just so I can clip it, put it on TikTok.
Yeah.
But essentially, you're replicating your understanding of relationships and you try to find the familiar in the world around you.
Yeah. That's it. The boys are looking for their mums, and the girls are looking for their dads.
Oh, calm down. Let's not get specific. Then it gets weird. But
It's true, man. That's what you said.
yeah, I said it. Yeah, good deflection. Yeah, it's live, so you're stuck with that now
Yeah.
forever on the internet.
There
Anyways,
you go,
let's
man.
actually add value.
Yeah.
I think this is valuable.
Yeah.
It's entertaining.
Well, people will get some value out of it. It's the truth, right?
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it. That's it.
How do you know what truth is?
The thing about truth is it's not opinion, it's not fact. It is like
Oof.
to give you articulate this. It is a rock that stands in the current.
Mm. Can it sit?
Stands it, whatever a rock does. Stay.
Rocks. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is that's the truth. So it doesn't move.
Okay.
Yeah. So truth will always be there. But when you find it, you find it.
Okay. All right. All
Yeah.
right. I'm a believer as well. You know, we were talking about subconscious and conscious mind off here.
Yeah.
That the truth hurts. So when you're close to emotional resonance, when you're close to something that's a meaningful change that's about who you are, it's going to hurt. It's going to be uncomfortable.
Absolutely. So here's the thing. The closer you're going to get to the truth,
Mm.
the more pain you'll feel before.
Good. Something to look
Because
forward to.
that oh I invite it, man. Like
Oh, yeah?
yeah.
Okay.
Because I see it like there's no growth in comfort zones, right?
Yeah.
So you got to put yourself in the comfortable uncomfortable to see that growth.
Yeah.
So the uncomfortable is always your struggles, your pains, your like if you look at it, I'll give you an analogy of gym work, right? If you go to the gym,
I don't go to the gym. Have you not seen me, bro?
if you want the muscles to grow,
Yeah.
there's just a couple of things. You got to push hard, right? You got to push hard in the exercise and the work that you do. For it to grow, that work and effort to extra work that you do. Like they say, your muscles won't grow until the top 3 to 5 reps after you're tired.
Oh, okay.
So you push that extra. That's a struggle. That's the effort. But the growth happens after the pain. So you're not growing when you're doing the work.
Yeah.
You're growing when you're resting. But after that, you've got the pain of pushing extra hard.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's yeah, I think it's quite fascinating. Like people will go their whole lives in a job they hate, that you know they resent their wife or husband when they come home. Like, oh, this guy licking the couch again, and then they'll go and drink alcohol to numb the pain, and they'll spend their whole life staying away from that uncomfortable zone because of how painful change actually is. So, how, Mister Change Agent,
Yeah.
do we handle, like, how do we
Yeah.
get through change? Because it's going to be uncomfortable. Do you have like a framework to navigate that uncomfortability?
Yeah. So you got to understand, you got to be aware. Self awareness is the key.
Okay.
Self awareness is the key of all of these things. So when you know, hey, that I've been through something or I'm going through something, that it's not the right path I want to go, right?
Okay.
So, and you need to change, right? So you believe actualization. Everything starts from acceptance. If you accept the fact that I need to change, then you'll change. If you don't accept the fact that I need to change, it will never happen.
Mm,
No matter how many times I tell you to change, it will not happen until you accept the fact that I need to change. So, number one is acceptance.
yep.
Number two is acknowledging that it's going to be hard. So, hey, I need to lose weight or I need to grow muscle, or I need to, whatever it is, or I need to get out of the relationship, or I need to go, hey, stop drinking, whatever it is.
Yeah. 4 years, apparently.
Yeah, it's good.
7 for me, 4 for you.
Well
I was,
done,
I was,
man.
I was shouting you out. Do you have
Yeah,
wine on
4.
Sundays though? Because you do that thing, wine and bread, or is that
No,
is
it's
that
just
not
juice.
Ah.
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Lame.
So all that. So acceptance, acknowledging that you'll go through some things, it needs to change, and then you got to be intentional with what you do about then in that change, and then you got to know that hey, you're going the right step afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's also a thing called the 2% rule. I don't know if it's called that, but it sounds good.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, where basically the rate of resistance is equal to the rate of change.
Yep.
So if you want less resistance, incrementally change. Two
That's it.
percent rule.
That's it. So even it sounds like the 1% rule or the compounding effect. All of these make sense into that, right? So resistance is you're going against something, right?
Mm.
So if you, it's like cold turkey,
And a
or your
sandwich.
step by step, yeah.
Yeah,
In a sandwich, okay. Sure,
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
If you're an addict, right? If you
yeah,
want to
yeah.
go give up something, you got cold turkey, or you incrementally or slow by slow, step by step take it, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: sometimes going cold turkey is better than in
Yeah.
those situations, but not all situations, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think anyone that's trying to give up an addiction,
Hmm.
the thing you need to fix first is what it was trying to medicate. So instead of worrying about the substance, you could give people all kinds of different substance,
Yeah.
but it's actually, that belief system or how they feel about themselves or how they medicate that emotion that will determine whether they get addicted. The other
Mm.
thing that will help alleviate addiction is replacing it. So
Hmm.
it's acknowledging that you have a certain neural pathway. When something happens, it directs it. So instead of trying to be like, oh no, this time I'll stop, I'll
Hmm.
work it out this time, you just replace it with something. And if you combine that,
Yeah.
and most problems will be solved purely from the fact you have an environment around you or people that you can be wholeheartedly yourself and they'll accept you.
Mm.
It'll fix. And they did it with Ratopia as well.
Yeah.
So have you heard of Ratopia? I'm
No.
just going on a tangent, but
Jeez.
Ratopia
Yeah.
was what they did with rats. So
Yeah.
they'd feed rats cocaine through like a sippy cup.
Oh, wow.
A bit hectic.
Well, living the life, right?
Yeah, but what would happen is, or it might even be crack. It might have been something hectic.
Yeah.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah.
And the rat was
Nice one.
yeah, it's live. You're like you didn't talk about this before. Um, that the rat that was lonely and isolated would turn to the substance. The rat that
Mm.
was in Ratopia,
Yeah.
we had all the things, all the friends, that fucking thing they run on, it didn't.
Interesting.
So I think the majority of people's problems will purely, and even in psychology, they say 70% of the relationship
Yeah.
is the therapy.
Nice. Okay. That that's really interesting what you say because most of the time it's it's similar but not the same. I got tangent as well. So
Yeah, go on.
um
It's been off the rails so fast.
the the symptom and the root cause. Most of the time we're trying to fix the symptom, not the root cause of the whole thing. And that's the issue with society, with everything we see,
Mm,
and the environment we're in right now in New Zealand as well.
interesting, because and to bring it to sales, because why not?
Yeah.
That's the mistake most salespeople make is they're trying to solve the symptom, not the cause of the objection.
That's it.
That the true thing. But we talked about negotiation, and you're helping these poor real estate agents with their slick hair out there
Yeah.
trying to sell after they were making so much money. Now it's gone,
Yeah.
which is tough for a salesperson.
Absolutely right. The market's tough right now.
Yeah, and I believe there is never a bad market, just a bad salesperson. And that frame of mind's helped me in life. Could be complete bullshit, but it helps me, so I believe it.
Yep. Go on.
So negotiations.
Yeah. Yeah.
How? What do you?
So the biggest part is same as you said, symptom to root cause, right?
Yeah.
So like if you're in sales and you were looking at, hey, I'm gonna solve a problem with for someone, right?
Yeah.
So you go in, you talk to them, and you're gonna biggest part is gonna bring up challenges, what the challenges are, or what's happening, or why you want to sell the house, or anything, right? We'll talk general sales, right? So you'll bring a solution to that problem.
Yeah.
But if you're just touching the surface,
Mm.
because people tell you the objections you see is a surface level, right? And they'll never tell you what's the root cause of the objection
Yeah.
or the stall,
Mm.
right? So you as a person, if you're like soft, you're gonna accept that and go away, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I would never do that. I'm not a people pleaser.
That's the thing. Most of them will be like, "Hey, I'll stop and let go," but a real salesperson will
Yeah.
dig deeper to the root cause of the issue. And once you got that, problem solved.
Yeah. I think I think that's one of the most underplayed parts of being a salesperson or inspiring a team member
Yeah.
is selling the product to yourself.
Mm,
Because then, if you're a people pleaser, if you genuinely believe this is the most important product they could ever have for their problem,
yeah.
then you feel more comfortable to push it
Yeah.
because you're doing a disservice if you don't sign them up.
That's the thing. Like most of the time what happens is like we believe that we are in an industry where we're product based or service based, but we actually in a business of people.
Hmm.
And the biggest thing I did over time, I don't know, for me was observing people, looking at their psychology, understanding, and bringing that all together into what's actually happening. So, product or service, you're dealing with people,
Yeah.
and that's the key in sales is understanding people, awareness of who you are,
Yeah.
and how you're going to relate to the other person.
Cool. Well, I think both of us could probably go quite deep into this and would might enjoy it. I assume
Yeah, that's it.
reading the psychology. So, okay, what? Let's start with like setting the scene. What type of outreach
Mhm,
like are you best at? So we can just know where to go. Like cold calling, messaging,
mhm.
door knocking, referrals. Like, what's your bread and butter? Like, what are you?
Me,
Yeah, yeah.
cold calling, man.
Ah, okay, cool, cool.
That's it. That's the foundation of how things move. No matter, as you said, no matter what market it is, it'll still be there.
Interesting.
It will still be there. Cold calling, door knocking, the basics. If you can do them, you'll be successful.
Mm,
If you can master these, you'll be successful. You can add in your social media. You can add in your marketing. Marketing, you got to market to a certain point as well. But if you can do the basics consistently,
yeah.
you're going to be successful.
Okay, good. So I'm glad you said cold calling
Yeah.
because I've done all of them.
Yeah.
And I was average at all of them, but
Yeah.
I could teach other people to be great at them,
It's
which is good.
nice.
Okay, so cold calling.
Yeah.
So my understanding is the person, no matter what you're selling, in the first moments of the call or interaction, they are associating you with prior experiences. So you need to do a pattern interruption
Yeah.
to help put them in a position where they're open to talk to you.
That's it.
Okay, so what do you do? Like, what are your tips on? Don't we're not going to do a role play because like
No, we won't.
yeah
So as you said, like you got to interrupt, right? So what you got to do is like, hey, whatever you say, first impressions count.
yeah
First impressions count. So if you're just if you're not good at cold call, they know.
mm,
If you're
mm,
nervous, they know.
yeah.
So that first impression, whatever you say, as you said, I've heard you say this on your one of the other ones.
Oh,
You
have you?
say
One of the other ones.
disrupt one of the other podcasts you've
Pattern
done, right?
disruption. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it was really good. So disrupt, get their attention.
Mm,
Number one, whatever you do, it may person to person may differ, right?
yeah,
You got to know who you're talking to, who you are first. So how you do that, you got to come from who you are naturally.
yeah,
That's the biggest key, I think, and that is like, hey, you got to discover it like over time. Practice makes perfect, right?
yeah.
So you may do like, okay, you teach someone this is how it's done, but over time they'll morph it into something
Oh, yeah,
they do, right?
100%. Yeah.
So over time, but the key is knowing who you are first. That's what I believe is the key. So underlying what we coach is about the person behind the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to be like, hey, I know, all right, disruption works. How am I going to do it? What brings me out and says, hey, I'm the person you're going to deal with.
Mm.
I'm going to do it this way. Let's get forward.
I think that's the fascinating thing I used to see So you bring someone in commissionally sales, never done it before, and then you go through a sequence of training. But the most interesting thing was the passionate person that knew nothing, and just you're listening to, and you're like, "What are you saying, bro?" But that passion would
Yeah.
pass on to the individual because of the thing called mirror neurons, where people feel what you feel.
Yeah.
So what? Let's just go back a little bit.
Mhm.
So what preparation do you make for a cold call? Because there's a fine balance between over preparing and never making calls and getting in your head,
Yeah.
and under preparing and then missing out on a good opportunity.
So for me, I would say, hey, know who you're calling, right? Number one.
Yeah.
If you know who you're calling, it's number one. Number two, as I said, if you don't want to over prepare, right? It's one of those things that everyone underneath is has a fear of rejection.
Yeah.
And you got to overcome that, right? So a lot of people will drown that in, oh no, I'm qualifying my leads, or
Yeah.
spending
I'm
a lot
doing it
of
recently.
yeah.
I'm full of shit, bro. I'll keep putting it off. Yeah.
So a lot of this time, it is time wasting.
Yeah. 100%.
Sometimes you gotta go cold. You just gotta pick up the phone and go for it, right?
Yeah.
And then you just gotta, and then you gotta disrupt. You gotta do whatever you do. You talk to them. You gotta relate with them. You know, hey, there's a person on the other side. Something's right. You said mirror.
Mm.
Mirroring is one of the key
Yeah.
parts of negotiation, right?
Yeah. Massive.
So even if they're not in front of you, you got that neuron
That
coming,
one
kicking.
hanging on.
Yeah. and that's going in your head as well at the
Yeah.
same time, right? But you gotta go through it, do it, and then get it over with as well. If you get a rejection, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's
Speak for
okay.
yourself.
It's yeah, that's it, man.
No, it is okay.
Rejections are like
It's life.
it's life. If you can't get like if you can't accept that, then you're gonna always be like fear of rejection is always gonna get the best of you.
Yeah, so I think at some point we should go on to how to be okay with rejection because that's quite valuable.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of the call, there's some fascinating things where I use the never split the difference thing, get them to say no as soon as possible. You're referencing something, so it tells me you probably know what I say. But the interesting thing, as soon as I call someone, I'm calling with energy. I'm like, oh, hey, or whatever I'm feeling authentically.
Yeah.
And then they'll start talking like this. And I'll be like, yeah, so this is what we're doing. And immediately you got to like just in a split second, or even with a handshake when
Yeah.
you got to meet someone. And they're like, oh, you got to shake firm hands and look them in the eyes. No, that freaked the fuck out of some poor limpy handshake. I was going to say something else. And
Yeah.
you got to adapt with the handshake to help them put it at ease. But then once you mirror them, a strange thing happens is where they start following you. So when you drink, they drink.
Yeah.
And then that's when you can start bringing more of your personality into it.
Yeah, so same thing, negotiations, right? Mirroring. So that kind of puts them at ease. It becomes a familiar ground.
Mm.
It just becomes a familiar ground for them to feel comfortable again. So a lot of people, as you talked about, when they're comfortable to themselves, they just want to be like in the space, right? So sometimes when you're calling, it's okay to just stand up.
Mm.
It's a power pose, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you're like, okay, this one's someone big. I need to get this fish, right? Okay, let's do it. I'm going to disrupt. You got a plan, you got a strategy, how I'm going to do this. And then you're going to go call them.
Mm.
You talk to them. They're like, hey, okay, let's go. And then sometimes what happens is if you're going to get a sale over the phone, how hard is that?
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
But it's been done, right?
Oh, heaps of times. Yeah. It's not actually hard.
Yeah.
But it feels impossible. You
It
know
is.
what I'm saying? Like I've done it enough.
Yeah.
Like I'll call someone, they'll give me their credit card, their like, where their address, their date of birth of their first child.
There you go.
But then I'll still think there's no way I could do this. Like, why would you give your credit card to someone over the phone? Like,
That's it. So credibility, trust, all of this comes into factoring, right?
yeah.
So how you build that in that space, it becomes key because no one's gonna do a deal with you unless they trust you.
Yeah.
And how you build that is key over the. So over time, the more you do it, the more you do it, the more you do it, and it's practice.
Yeah.
You can't expect someone starting to do it to just get it done, right? You can give them the tips and tricks,
Mm.
but they just need to familiarize themselves. Get the fear of rejection is the biggest one, man.
Yeah.
That's the biggest hurdle that ever need to get over. And let's unpack that if you
Okay.
want.
All right. Go on then. How do you deal with rejection?
I think it's the fear of acceptance again. You got to accept the fact that hey, I'm gonna get rejected no matter what. It's a certain percentage of times more than the other side that you're gonna get rejected, right? It's the fact of cold calling, right? You're good, you qualify your leads, you're really good. No matter what, there's gonna be a certain percentage of rejection,
Yeah.
right? No matter
80%.
what you do. 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how are you gonna get over it? You gotta accept it. You gotta acknowledge that hey, no matter what, it's gonna happen. But for my business to grow, that has to be done. No matter, you can't avoid it, right? As you said,
Yeah.
you do so much of lead qualification. That's a waste of time,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Don't sack me.
You just got to get in and do it. Like, how do you get over your fear? There's a couple of things, but number one, if it's external, you got to do it to get over that fear. Fear of heights, bungee jump,
Mm.
jump off a plane, right? Same thing called a rejection. It's so instilled. It's evolutionary.
Mm.
You got to go back to why you have it, right? Why you have it. It's evolutionary why they just didn't want to be rejected out of a tribe or anything like they wanted to get married or get a female.
Mm.
There was only one chance they had.
Yeah. And it's cooked.
That's done.
Yeah. And then you get beaten by a rock by the other tribe.
You're done.
Like it's reasonable to be fearful of rejection. You get rejected, you're dead.
Yeah, that's it.
Essentially, like you don't have a tribe. You're, in a cave. Oh yeah, I found one with myself. But
Yeah,
back then, you needed your tribe.
that's it. So, and that's evolutionary trend that we've carried on for thousands of years,
Mm.
and it's instilled. If you're talking evolution, but there's ways of getting over it, right? You rewire, you change that because the mind is so plastic.
Okay,
Uh,
unpack that.
yeah, so
Like
you
Barbie
can,
and Ken or what?
oh, not like plastic, no, but the word is plasticity.
Neuroplasticity.
Right, yeah.
Look, I
So
read.
you can change so many of it. The brain is so lazy, or it's not lazy, it's efficient,
Yeah, yeah.
right? It's formed neural pathways and it just wants to go up and down the same pathway
Mm.
rather than forming a new pathway, right? So change is forming that new pathway, right? In a way that, hey, I'm not going to do it like this. I'm going to do it like this.
Yeah.
So you got to change from this pathway, neural pathway that's going, that's comfortable,
Yeah.
a way of doing things, for example, and you change it a certain way that you got to form a new pathway. And once it's formed, it's there for the brain to go, the new information to go through that, right?
Yeah.
So, same thing. You got to go from here. Okay, this is how it's been done. This is how everyone feels. But there's another way of to feel it. There's another way of doing it. There's another way of going about it. I think, right? So,
Yeah.
and in that way, is a lot of things that we're like conforming to as a general
Yeah.
umbrella. Like there's a lot of things we conform to,
Yeah.
and it's funny like how everything's going around. You look at people; they're conforming to everything.
Oh,
And
okay. This
I'm
could
going,
go
I'm going, I'm
dangerous.
going.
Conspiracist. Where's your tinfoil hat?
Yeah, no, man. So, the pattern is so conformity is so ingrained in
Yeah, yeah.
us. It's letting us or leading a lot of people astray to go down a path where they're not supposed to go.
Yeah.
And to add value in that, I think a lot of people can do things differently by just accepting the fact they're different.
Mm.
Right? You don't have to conform to everyone else. You don't have to fit in all the time. Right? Make sense?
Yeah, I very
I've
much
gone
don't
from
fit in.
there to there all the way.
No, you do well. It makes
Yeah.
sense to me. Like, so anyone listening, neuroplasticity is the general framework of the brain can change. So there's hope. So essentially, I would think, even if you're trying to build a new road, you need to become aware.
Absolutely.
And to become aware, that allows you to unpack it
Yep.
and rebuild it. And then when you rebuild that pathway, that comes through retraining your brain that it's okay. So let's say your fear of rejection stems from when dad didn't buy you ice cream. And now you're like, I don't want to get rejected again because when I asked him for ice cream, it'll be worse than that probably. And it could be as trivial as that. And then you're skeptical anytime you ask for ice cream because you're worried about that.
Mm.
So you both need to be aware of it, comfortable with the consequences of it, but then also train it that it's okay, which is a challenge with rejection is one thing to desensitize yourself to rejection. It's another thing to be okay with
Mm.
rejection. What do you think?
That's it. Awareness is key, right? So you know where it comes from. Why are you feeling this way?
Mm,
So as we talked about the the model that I talked about before, thought to belief system to feeling to action, right? So the feeling is where we catch it most
mm,
of the time. I feel a certain way,
yeah.
but we can reverse engineer it to the thought, and then that belief system is everyone has. That's where the conditioning, what you said about the father and the child and the ice cream, it's a belief system that's happened.
Yeah.
It's a conditioning that's memorized. It's stored in there in us. Now, for us to get that out or rewire it or change it, we got to be like, hey, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling the fear. I'm feeling rejected. I'm feeling like I'm not accepted. That's the opposite way of thinking, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
rejection is not accepted.
Mm,
So I'm not accepted because blah blah blah.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm not accepted because blah blah blah. These guys not receptive of my message. He's not accepting the fact that I'm trying to give him something that's good for him, but it's not good for him.
Yeah.
Sometimes, maybe not, but most of the time we're selling something that's good, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Nah, yeah. Not everyone, but the right person
The right
definitely needs
person.
it.
So sometimes what happens is the acceptance of like, hey, this person what may say no, it's okay, and that's life moves on.
Yeah.
It's not okay. Like it's okay, even if you go to a really deep sense of like, hey, it goes to like if you were a single young teenage boy trying to talk to a girl,
Mm.
it's huge, right? And that no coming from that girl, it's huge. It's heartbreaking. It's like it's the
I've
worst
moved
thing.
on, Candace. Don't listen to him.
That's
I never
yeah,
dated a
that's
Candace,
it.
just FYI.
So, and that's the deep ingrained stuff that we're talking about. That's from evolution and going through. Why we you said is like how to rewire that into the belief system and the conditioning. It's over time the awareness that comes through it, right? Once you're aware, you accept, then you
Yeah.
can change it.
Mm.
Because or else you're gonna be stuck with it. And sales is not something that I can do. That's what the conclusion you come to, right?
Yeah.
I can't do sales because it's too hard.
Yeah.
And a lot of the sales guys you will train, a lot of people that you train will like commission based, especially. Oh, this is not for me
Yeah.
because of that one thing, the fear of rejection, and all of it fall through in that.
Mm.
But sales is something that everybody needs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Every part of life, I see it. Every sales, I see it in negotiations as well. Every part of life is negotiations.
So like deciding what to eat, you just like do you just get what you want every time, or like how do you?
There you go. If you're married, like myself,
Yeah, yeah.
it's always a negotiation.
How do you
Right?
decide what to eat for dinner?
Yeah.
What's your negotiation tactics? There's many people listening to this might have that challenging circumstance.
There you go. So it's like, hey, I know what she likes.
Oh yeah.
I know what I like. If it's like, hey, she likes this, I'll be like, okay, to win that negotiation.
If you're listening to this.
Yeah, if she is, how you get me in trouble, man.
It's on you, bro.
I may not have a house to go back to.
You know some real estate agents, you'll be fine.
So it'll be like, okay, I know she'll say she wants this.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, we don't like. We'll build up, right? I'll have a
Okay.
conversation. We'll build up. We'll be like, oh, I'll be mirroring her.
Oh.
And she's a psych major, right? So
Oh yeah, no, that wouldn't work
then,
then. People still don't notice.
yeah, that's the funny thing. Like
Mm.
even the educated ones don't even notice this because the observance is like a little bit low afterwards, right?
Oof, you definitely need a new house.
After this, like, well,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and then
He loves you very much. Sorry, yeah.
thanks, man.
We'll get serious.
And once you get to that stage, you're like, hey, okay, why don't we go around, play a little game, back and forth, and then I'll win, no
Mm.
matter what.
No matter what, you always go where you want to go.
No, not always.
I was gonna say, brother, you're either delusional
happy
or
wife,
the best seller.
happy life, man.
Yeah, good man. Good man.
Happy wife, happy life. So,
Happy
but
wife,
it's
happy wife.
happy wife, man. Life is another secondary thing.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing more important than people and purpose.
That's it. And then negotiations is it's a win-win situation always.
Yeah.
So if you can come to a conclusion where both of you win, always key.
Interesting. Because so then negotiation isn't about bending them to your will. It's about finding a middle ground that they're happy with.
That's it. Where you both get something, get
Yeah.
value out of,
Okay.
and that's the key about negotiation. That's what I see, because it's not about one person winning.
Hmm.
It's about both of you winning.
So, what are your thoughts? So, I've gone deep in this book called $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. He's good.
He's gone around.
Yeah.
So he had a description of what value actually is. I'm wondering what you think value is in terms of like sales. You know.
In terms of sales, I think value is something that you can build.
Mm.
As you build value, it's for like product of sales. Like if you're product of service, you build that value into what you're negotiating about. So if you're about in sales, you're selling a product. If the person doesn't see value in it, he'll always say no.
Mm.
Number one, how you build value is key, right? So what value means to me, it's something that you can take, and it actually means something that it's you're gonna work with it, you're gonna live with it, you're gonna be like, hey, I've got something.
Yeah.
I've got something out of this. I've got something. So when you're buying something, you want to feel value,
Mm.
right? If the value is not there, then you walk away with something that you regret,
Yeah. For
right?
sure.
So that value means something that it's not winning, but it's like I'm taking home something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think we can get quite tactical in this. So how would you build value in the eyes of a prospect? So, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
it's really emphasizing the problem where it resonates. So
Mhm.
they feel that problem.
Yeah.
I used to raise money for charities, and I would
Nice.
think of my dead dog, so I had the tonality right.
Yeah.
When I was talking about the whatever charity I was representing.
Yep.
And emphasizing the problem, but that was low level selling as opposed to identifying their problem and emphasizing it.
Yeah.
And then the second piece is linking their values or dream outcome to your solution.
That's awesome. Like this, the thing about you said is this solution, right?
Mm.
That's always the value they'll always take to them. That the solution, because as you talked about symptoms and the root cause. If your solution is top level or like just symptom fixing, that's not real added value. The real added value is when you get to the bottom of the root cause of the problem or the challenge and you fix that. The solution you bring to that is the real value. And that's a win-win situation because when you fix that, you've got satisfaction.
Yeah.
And they've got a solution to a problem, a win-win situation.
It makes sense. Like for me, most solutions are emotional. So the solution
Hmm.
might be a specific thing.
Yeah.
Every time I walk on the carpet, it smells, so I need a carpet cleaner.
Yeah.
But the solution is actually, hey, I feel a lack of pride in my own space, and I feel out of control and helpless. Whereas, so your solution you're selling is the confidence to know that your space is something to be respected.
Hmm.
Here's this vacuum cleaner.
Nice.
What do you think? Bro, they used to sell them for 5 grand or whatever
There
those
you go.
things were. That wasn't
It's like
me.
the shark ones or something, right?
Yeah, I don't know what they're called.
Yeah.
Apparently, people still rate it. It still goes, Ryan. I'm like, yep. Sorry.
But that's the thing. Like the solution and the problem, right? The problem is solution, the value, the added, the sorry,
Yeah, so value in terms of emotions.
yeah. So
So is the
people
solution the feature or the actual?
people will buy emotionally.
Yeah,
So they'll buy emotionally, and they'll make sense of it logically later.
yeah. No,
All
true,
right.
true.
So emotions are key. Like as I said, like most of us are triggered, like emotionally. We'll catch how we feel of about the thought we have,
Mm,
and they'll catch that emotion first, and then when they go back and sit down and think about it, that's where the logic comes through. All right. So if they emotionally invested and logically not,
yeah.
your added value is only at like selling at the top, like not even top
Well,
level, but
manipulation,
that's
really.
it. Yeah, it's manipulation more than anything. If you've got emotion and logic
Yeah.
and you've added, that's true added value when it makes sense to them, they feel good about it and it
Mm.
makes sense what they bought, you added value naturally.
I think I've never actually truly sold how I communicate, and I feel like the way I communicate could sell very well,
Mm-hmm,
which is
mm-hmm.
because I like genuinely try to ask questions and I push the envelope to try and get a true sense of what they're feeling.
Yeah.
An interesting thing is just talking to you now. So let's say you identify the problem and you provide that solution in a meaningful way. Then what happens is that's a change because essentially they had a way of doing things. Now you're offering a solution they might not have had.
Mm.
So then they're going to start having new emotions that come with change. So then that becomes the logic part of like reassuring the mind that
Mm-hmm.
it's okay,
Yeah.
that you made a good decision. But one of the things that Alex Amosi does with his team is he person sells it, and then another person the next day that they're handing them over, the onboarding team, will send a personalized message within an hour to
Mm.
reassure them about the money. Like, hey, Bob, like I just heard that you want to achieve this. Just so you know, I'm really excited to help you. We're going to kick off on Friday. And then they're like, whew.
Yeah.
It's not just logic, it's reassuring the emotions of change.
Yeah. So he's touched both points, you see. So emotionally first touch point,
Mm.
you know, it's about when you sell, it takes about 2-3 days for them to say, "Hey, come back on. I don't feel good about this." Right?
I don't know. Where'd you get that time frame from?
So just experience, right?
Oh, yeah.
Experience. There's nothing, no research done,
And
no
if it
anything.
doesn't happen today, it didn't happen.
That's it.
Where's the money? It's in my account. I'll believe you now.
That's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
through experience, they'll if you manipulated them,
Yeah.
they may buy. But most of the time, 2-3 days later, they'll become like, oh, doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't want to go ahead anymore, or something like that. So what Alexa Mosey's done really well is like, even if they buy emotionally, they've gone back and there's, hey, touched logically
Mm.
this, and this to make sense of everything for them. So that's really well done with Alex. He's cracked it, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's correct. Yeah.
he's done well. He's done really well with himself, and he's got so much experience behind him. So hearing his story, how he started with gyms and stuff was quite interesting. Yeah,
Mad.
yeah. So he's got so much experience, and he's cracked their psychology of like, hey, even if they're buying emotionally, the next day or the 2 days later, someone will give them a call and make sense of logically, hey, you've got this. We'll start next week. So it's combine everything together.
Yeah.
It was emotional logic. Everyone's buying in. Sales makes sense. The person's got value. He knows what he's getting, and the value is there. Let's go ahead. Keep going with it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So let's go to different tack.
Yeah.
So what they used to tell me with objection handling, and I've changed my mind, but I'm not going to tell you what I've changed my mind to see what you actually say.
Yeah.
So normally they say agree. So someone has an objection. I want to talk to my partner.
Mhm.
And you agree. You're like, I understand that you want to talk to your partner. And then the next thing is relate. I know someone that wanted to talk to their partner too. And then the next part is once they're disarmed, then you tell them why they're wrong. And
Yeah.
then you give them an impulse and then you close again.
Yeah.
So how do you objection handle? Or is that what you do and I just upset you?
No, no, that's absolutely fine. Agreeing is the best first place.
Okay.
If you don't agree, you lost them.
Okay.
Because if you say, "Hey, no," then it's like, oh, you've put something that you're going against the grain already. All right.
No, sign up. Okay.
That's it. So when you agree, you're disarming them.
Yeah.
You're naturally disarming them, and you what you said is like you've seen, found, felt.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You are one of those. Okay. Yeah.
So you said it right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you've done that already, and then you're gonna go back in and say, hey, all right, you bring them in. You agreed. You've seen, found, felt. You're gonna bring them back in, and you were like, okay, this is what I've seen. They're already back in.
Hmm.
This is what this and this.
Okay.
Let's go ahead.
All right. So you are that school of thought. Okay. Well, here's my theory.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think it's on the money.
yeah.
So you can tell me if I'm stupid.
That's one.
So the first thing is there's the quote that says the shortest way round, the longest way round is the shortest way home. So what
Okay,
I mean
okay,
by that
okay.
is, like in World War One, they'd go direct mass on mass. It was a military fuck up where they
Yeah.
just try to fight at the strongest fortified position. So it's much easier to go around.
Mm-hmm.
So the longest way around is the shortest way home.
Yeah.
So the first best way to solve an objection is before they ever presented it.
Yeah.
So
That's
by
right.
that I mean a third party example that has their particular issue,
Yeah.
and you solved it before it presented. So then the close is just yes or I can't afford it. The
Mhm.
second one,
Yeah.
which is
Okay.
a theory now,
Yeah,
that one
go on,
works,
Yeah.
is try to understand why they're right and you're wrong. So not
Okay.
just agree, relate, try and change your framework and genuinely explore the truth with them.
Yeah.
And then as you're asking the questions, the fallacy will find there'll be a fallacy in your argument or theirs. And if there's a
Mm,
fallacy in your argument, you've found the truth. And maybe you shouldn't sell what you're selling to them or in general.
yeah.
What do
So
you think?
the second one,
Don't rate it.
I think the second one's
Safe space. You said people pleasers aren't good salesmen. So, you know.
the second one's both of them are good. Second one
Okay.
makes sense as well because
Okay.
you're getting to a stage where you're discovering together,
Yeah.
right? First one's like, hey, you're going around and you done something that's really worked, right? The second one is good as well because you're discovering together. When you look back at yourself, you're like, hey, okay, you're getting to know what's actually happening. You're relating. You related already, so you said, hey, okay, perfect. I think discovering the truth is always key.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe in the truth, right?
Okay.
So
Unless you just want to agree.
no.
So you can objection handle them. Apart from that,
yeah,
you're in the pursuit of truth.
yeah. No, you can always. There's a certain way of doing disagreeing to agree, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So disagreeing to agree.
Is that not dishonest though?
Actually,
'Cause
depends on what you believe, right?
well, how do you agree? Do you say they're like the sky is purple? You're like, I completely understand. You're right. The sky is purple. But anyways, have you thought about how it's got a blue tint?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? So you gotta sometimes you gotta do it without them feeling disagreed,
Yeah.
right? You can't start an argument in that space, right? Don't want to get into an argument base
Mm.
because they'll just ruin the whole relationship, right? Because they'll just go into their shell and that's it, done. So you got to disagree to agree with them at the same time, where you say incrementally 2%,
Mm.
slowly bringing them to the truth.
Hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does. I don't like it.
It's a long way, right?
Yeah,
It's the other way.
it's the yeah.
It takes a lot of touch points that way.
It is a talent.
Yeah.
I used to work for APCO. I don't know if you heard of them, but that was their whole model, and
Yeah.
it's scalable and it's teachable because quite often new salespeople will make the mistake of thinking, "Oh, I'm getting these objections. That's the answer.
Mhm.
That's what I actually need to work on." When they need to focus on something else.
Yeah.
Because there's another interesting thing you can do. Most products or services have the same objections.
Yeah.
You know, like I've already got someone, or I've got a partner, or I can't afford it, or I want to think about it. And there's actually causes that resulted in those objections.
Yeah.
And the cause of those objections, like, is urgency, for example. So someone, let's say, think about it.
Yeah.
If people keep saying to you, I want to think about it, funnily enough, it's because you've given them too much information. The wrong kind of information. Now they're confused, so they want to think about it, or it's bullshit.
I think the personality counts usually in that.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing we do is we look at the personality of the person
Okay.
and who we're dealing with. It's about different ways of doing the personalities, right?
Mm.
So who you're dealing with, like knowing who you are, what sort of personality you have, and who you're dealing with. So in that sense, you'll tailor make that approach in terms of how much information you get.
Yeah.
Are you going to use emotional logic, or how you're going to tailor make that approach is going to be key, because the personality, because people, right, have
Yeah.
different personalities. If you can't relate to that personality, it's going to be harder
Yeah.
to. So for example, I want to think about it. Most of the time it's either too much or too less. You just got to get it right, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So we put them into four types of personalities, and we'll look at, hey, if you're this person, some
Mm.
are very supportive, some are very emotional, talkative, some are very analytic, if you want to say, or some are very direct. To give us just an example of four types of personalities that normally come across, right? So if you're taking with a direct person, you won't give all the information,
Mm.
but you're gonna go directly and just say, hey, this is what it is,
Yeah. You're
and
wrong. Buy it.
you'll be they'll
That
tell
works 100%.
they will tell
Swear at
you,
them, get
yeah.
angry, whatever you want. If that's what they're doing, hey, listen here, like you're so full of shit, Ryan. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Actually, I know exactly what I'm fucking talking about. I think you're the one that's full of shit. So sit down, let's talk about it.
that's
And
it.
they like it.
That's what it
Humans
is.
are weird,
Yeah,
bro.
that's it. So that's what the personality we're dealing with, right? If you,
Mm.
that's what they'll tell you, and that's what I think most of the salespeople miss out. As I said before, is it's a people thing. You got to know who you're dealing with.
Well, the interesting thing. So we're at 51 minutes,
Oh
so we're
wow.
wrapping up soon. It just rolled. That I started to hate pitch selling,
Hmm.
but I know it's scalable. So then I started thinking, how can you scale EQ? How can you teach a person to understand people?
Mm,
So I understand things like that, like influence ecology. They're a thing that have for understanding leadership and business. Sounds like you've got a personality type that helps people categorize, so then they can use that, and you might have certain indicators that help them categorize that. So
that's it.
it's
Yeah,
scalable.
that's it. It's scalable because what it is you're talking about people, like you've got all these types of personalities around,
Yeah.
right? Some are very mixed, but you can know who you're dealing with, because if you know who you are, your personality, and you know who you're dealing with, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
It becomes a lot easier than going in the dark, right?
Mm.
So if you're just going in as a new salesperson going in, and you're just like talk to a person, but all your focus is your product or your service,
Yeah. Fail.
you're gonna lose it, right? Because people to people,
Yeah.
if you can't relate to the other person, everything falls apart.
It's mad. I
Yeah.
mean, and the other interesting thing is, so we used to we people get so obsessed with the words. So
Yeah.
I'd say to them, okay, watch this. And I'll just say see how many times in the pitch I could say purple elephant.
Yeah.
And I'd say, like with the charity, for example,
Yeah.
and so there was like 7,000 kids on the waiting list that needed support.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, there's actually 7,000 purple elephants, and they're really struggling, and the government cut the funding, and they were like, wow, 7,000,
Yeah.
and didn't hear the purple elephant, because essentially is how you say the tonality, your body language,
Yeah.
and that's what people. Or another guy was training. He's like, "Oh fuck, man! Like why are they buying?" Because he was up like stopping people in the street, all passionate,
Yeah.
ticking all the box, the smile thing, or C, whatever it's called,
Yeah.
smile enthusiasm, something. Um,
No.
and I would be sitting there, and I was like, "Hey guys, this is before you go, I'll share this." And then they come over, and I'll just be sitting down, signing them up. People are like, "What? What are you doing?" I'm like, "You're doing everything wrong." But that's the thing. It's like, what are you sub communicating?
That's it.
But as we wrap this up, my friend,
Nice.
because I'm also busting for the loo.
Yeah.
Uh, what would be your closing remarks? Either someone to take away these real estate agents that want help negotiating because now they're only earning 150 grand instead of half a mil.
Yeah.
Um, that, and then also, how do they find you?
So I think the biggest part is one you want to do is upskilling is very important for these guys, because what will happen is if they don't upskill in this stage, they're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
There's about 500 dropped out already this year.
Mm.
So
500 dropped out of real estate. Wow.
that's crazy. So about 7,000 of them, and it's about by July there was about 300 gone.
Chicken, suck it
Yeah,
up.
that's it. And then the biggest thing is now none new people are not going in to real estate.
Wow.
So there used to be about 3 or 4 at least a week, not even one in a week right now.
Wow.
So crazy
Perfect
times.
time.
I know, right? So if you're interested, if you know you can make it, if you got it, go in and do it right now. Because if you go into this time, this is a perfect time to learn.
Yeah.
But you got to keep upskilling in terms of change. You got to keep changing. You got to keep learning. How you find me? I am all over social media. You can go on our website on High Performance Training and Coaching. Find me on there. I am all over everywhere. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
My name is Joneet Lal.
Blowing up.
Yeah. Thanks to Ryan. Now I'm blown up big time.
Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, reach out if you need any help, right?
Cool, brother.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on. First podcast?
Yeah. I've done a few with Josh actually.
Oh, Josh.
Yeah.
He took it away.
Yeah.
I wanted to have the special moment together, and Josh just ruined it. If you're listening, Josh.
Yeah, man. I'm done a few with them videos and everything. So
Cool, man.
yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for your time.